There's a lot to discuss. Let's get straight to it with Jake Sullivan. He was one of the key negotiators of the Obama administration's nuclear deal with Iran in 2015 that Trump pulled out of. More recently, he served as President Biden's national security advisor. He is also the co-host of a terrific new podcast called The Long Game. Jake, welcome. When you look at the situation right now, put yourself back in the White House in the Situation Room, what are you seeing that encourages you, or what are you seeing that worries you?
Well, look, Fareed, on the encouraging side, the U.S. military is just simply remarkable. It's remarkable at being able to achieve tactical objectives, to execute operations with skill, professionalism, and courage. And that has been proven out here over the course of the past week. But the discouraging part is we are asking the U.S. military to put itself in harm's way, and we've already lost 6 service members, pointed towards a completely unclear objective. The administration has not been able to say with any clarity whatsoever what the ultimate goal of this war is. And in fact, they've given perhaps a dozen different explanations, shifting by the hour, by the day. And here, a week into the war, to have that level of muddiness, that muddle, I think is a huge challenge, because it suggests that this war got launched without being fully thought through, and that the end of this war is something that we have no kind of core concept as to what it will bring, or how the president will ultimately come out and say, okay, I'm done, I'm moving on. And that leaves us in an extremely precarious position.
Do you think, you mentioned the skill of the U.S. military, which really is extraordinary. I wonder whether the success of the Venezuela operation, the ability to extract these 2 people, Maduro and his wife, so seamlessly, in a sense, gave President Trump too much confidence in using military force without thinking through that question of what is this strategy behind that tactical genius.
You know, it's interesting, Fareed. My co-host on the podcast, The Long Game, John Feiner, and I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times shortly after the Venezuela raid. And in it, we basically said President Trump is going to draw the wrong lesson from this. He's going to think we can use military force anywhere, anytime, for any purpose, and it will all work out just fine. And we also pointed out that when you start using military force, the appetite grows with the eating. And I think President Trump saw that Maduro raid, saw what our special forces could do, looked to Iran and said, hey, let's try to put them to use there too, but could not identify a clear set of objectives at the end of the day, and obviously could not identify an imminent threat to the United States, necessitating the launching of this war at this time in this way. And so now, a week in, I think what they're doing is sitting in the Situation Room and basically saying, okay, what do we do? Should we just call it now? Do we have to get to full regime change? Do we have to actually put boots on the ground, as we've seen some reports they're considering? They're sitting around looking at one another and kind of shrugging their shoulders. And this, I think, is the core strategic problem of the conflict at this point.
And it really has widened in a way that frankly is greater than I would have guessed. The Iranians these are pinprick strikes, but they are affecting commerce. Daniel Yergin just wrote in the FT that this is the largest disruption in oil production and transport in history. What are you hearing from the region? You still have very, very strong contacts with the rulers of the Gulf and other Arab countries.
Look, the level of concern across the region, and you're right, I do speak with many people there on a daily basis, is sky high. But what these folks tell me is this was anticipated in a way. Maybe not as broad, but the basic concept was anticipated. Why? Put yourself in the shoes of the Iranian regime. You're getting pummeled by the U.S. and Israel. What are your options? Your best option from their perspective is to try to disrupt energy flows, to hit technology, to hit tourism, to hit finance. And they're selecting their targets across multiple countries very clearly to achieve the result of imposing greater and greater economic pain on the entire world and on the United States. Why? With the goal to try to hasten the end of this war. Because the sooner this war ends, from their perspective, the better in terms of their ability to survive and to reconsolidate power. So at the moment, this is basically a race between the U.S. trying to impose and Israel trying to impose as much damage as possible. And I thought your opening comments were spot on in what Israel's trying to achieve here. And the Iranian regime trying to raise the price and the costs as high as possible. And who's suffering? The world is. The American people are. Gas prices, for example, have jumped dramatically just in the last week and promise to go even higher. And this is all part of the strategy of a much weaker opponent playing the hand that they have. And that is something that the administration should have anticipated coming into it.
Yes, it seems to me if you launch a kind of existential war against Iran, don't be surprised if they have an existential response, which is, we're just going to blow up everything we can because this is regime survival for us.